Not only did it ruin that guy's, moment, right? But it also kind of killed the steam, because if he was going to release it and they released it sooner, now that's taken away from us kind of having another one 3 in one day, because these guys want to be first. And and I'll get into that in a second, but Dijon was kind of just walking around, kind of just taking it all in, and then obviously he decommitted the following day. Then we had that situation where Rivals and a few other guys released that he did commit to Florida, which is always unfortunate. What sucked about that is it took away the steam from Florida. Not only did it ruin that guy's, moment, right? But it also kind of killed the steam, because if he was going to release it and they released it sooner, now that's taken away from us kind of having another one 3 in one day, because these guys want to be first. And I want to talk about that a little bit too and get your take, Blake, I understand that everybody wants to be first, so I kind of see both sides. Obviously, as a fan, right, the fanatic in us, we want to be pissed off and frustrated, and it's frustrating, but I get it. It's that gray area that we spoke with Connor Clark about, of like, hey, you want to be first, you want to be the best, you want to be the person that gets it out there. But unfortunately, when you do with what Rivals just did, now everyone's saying, hey, screw Rivals, they suck, right? And thank you, Sean McCain, for subscribing. Welcome to the family. But they got to realize too, they have a job to do, and they want to be first, and they want people, like, the reason why we go to these places and we subscribe to this is because it's breaking news. And if you're not breaking news, then should I still say subscribed? I don't know, right? In the world that we live in now, I think being first is it's getting a little watered down. I think they'd rather have a accurate, take and a great visual. That's why Hayes Fawcett, when he shares his commitment photo, that photo goes everywhere because it's visually appealing, right? It's not necessarily it has to be first. It just looks good. So if it looks good and it's thorough, it's going to do just as well. And I think that's where these the Rivals and the on-3s and the 247s, they've got to realize, like, there's a balance between this. And so what's your thoughts on that, Blake? Were you frustrated when you saw that come out, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, you get frustrated with a lot of this because everyone wants to be first. Because what happens when that breaking news happens, that first person who does it, that name gets put out there. So you always want it to be accurate and to, with all the information, even if he commits or decommits, and we all knew he was going to decommit, but it was like a day before, he even did it, whenever, or it could have been like 2 days before. But, you want that kid to have his moment too. I think, these are 17, 18-year-old kids that want to have their moment, because, it's a celebration for them. And it gets really ruined by a lot of these, Rivals and on-3, of course, they do it all the time. But, it ruins it for the players who have worked hard their entire life. That they want this moment for themselves, because a lot of these guys don't get seen. It's hard for me sometimes to see players, because they have helmets on, so we really don't recognize them. So this whole celebration's for them, so you can actually see them, you can see their face, and it just gets it gets swept right out from under them by a lot of these sites, and it's frustrating, because everyone wants to be right, or everyone wants to be first, but they push the accuracy to the side and like, well, let's just put this out there so our name is out there. But it does get totally frustrating, if you're on Twitter, Instagram, and all this stuff. You can see, so you'll see about 3 or 4 different things before you actually get the right version. But it does get frustrating 100%.
Yeah, it sucks. Again, I get it, I understand it. It's their job, but now they've hurt themselves very much because of this. A lot of people are very frustrated, very upset, because now we don't know. And again, obviously nobody's blaming Florida. He's not blaming Florida for this, but it's just, man, it's going to also too keep these guys' predictions. I mean, everybody wants to put those crystal balls out there. At some point, you're going to burn these guys of not wanting to tell you, right? And it's just, you've got to find that fine line. So, unfortunately, we don't know yet with Dijon. Hopefully, he commits today. I feel like you got to commit today to keep this moment. If that was your plan all along, right, to commit to Florida, obviously that graphic was put together for a reason. Obviously, he's probably waiting because he's like, I'm going to take this for my own now. And maybe Billy said, hey, look, they ruined that. They ruined the momentum. Let's hold off. We're going to have another big momentum swing on this weekend. And that could be what happens too, right? Like maybe we get DeQuavius Sorey and him and somebody else, because Kamani McLean hasn't gone through yet. Will Norman looks pretty good, and we'll get into that when we get into the Friday Night Lights section. I kind of have a few breakdown from all those guys, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with Dijon. I don't think it gets ruined. I really don't. I think it's just going to push back the excitement for us, that's, as a Florida fan, is frustrating because a ton of momentum was happening, possibly the biggest weekend in Florida recruiting history for a very long time anyways. It feels really good right now. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and
to your point, Blake. I mean, look,
Sorry.
I mean, it's a situation where like sometimes momentum is everything, right?
Yep.
So right now, Florida has a ton of momentum. Do you at some point say maybe another commitment right now isn't the best timing? Do you wait another weekend? Do you wait for another a big recruiting visit, and maybe try to use that? Look, I mean, the fact that he's obviously decommitted just after being on Florida campus, you got to think that there's something there. But again, we've talked about it here, the art of the silent commitment, and then finding out when to truly utilize it.
Like this weekend.
Yes, exactly. So some of these kids may have already had their intentions known, but having all these kids on campus and making that big push. Look, the Dijon Johnson thing at this point may not have the legs that it would have 48 hours ago, but you keep that in your back pocket. I feel like that's something that they're going to use to leverage maybe the next big wave of a recruiting move on their end.